Oh my goodness, it is the weirdest day here today. Like the weather is doing the strangest things. I woke up this morning and it snowed overnight and it was probably like that thick snow. It was really quite thick and I was like, oh, exciting. I'm going to get to go for a nice snowy dog walk this morning. And then it started raining and just turned everything to sludge and it was just a bit gross and it kind of looked like it was going to thunder. It was very, very bizarre. And now I've sat down to film this video and it's like beautiful sunshine and it feels like a lovely spring morning and it's all very weird. So yeah, I'm taking full advantage of having good light and I thought I would make a video that I wanted to make towards the end of last year and I just didn't get around to doing. And it is kind of like a yearly roundup of my favourite plants, my top 10 from 2024. And I always find these videos a little bit difficult because there's so many plants that I could pick. There's so many gorgeous ones that I could show you for this video, but these ones are just, if I had to say, the ones that I feel like have, as I say, brought me the most joy, been an absolute pleasure to grow and taught me quite a lot as well, I would say. So yeah, that is the plan for today. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And yeah, I'm really excited to take you through these plants, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. This is so typical. It's now clouding over and kind of looking like it's going to rain again, so I'm really hoping we can keep the light. But as always, these plants are in no particular order. I could have ordered them for this video, but I feel like getting it down to a top 10 for an entire year is good enough. So all of these ones are, let's just say all of these ones are number one in my collection. I know that's not being specific, but these are just my favourite plants. I think they are amazing. And yeah, I thought I would take you round to each of them so that you can kind of see where they're growing, see like a little bit about their conditions. I will talk you through that as we get to each plant. But yes, I am going to show you the most awkward one first. Arguably, I think the biggest, yeah, probably the biggest, but I'm going to spin the camera around and show you the first one. So it'll probably come as no surprise at all to most of you that this one has made my top 10. This is my Anthurium pallidiflorum and oh my goodness, this one has just been the apple of my eye this year. I cannot even put into words how much I have enjoyed growing this plant. It has been ridiculously rewarding and there's still so much more I want to do with it and I will get to that in a minute. But I got this plant probably about a year ago exactly. I think it was mid-January that I first got this one, and it wasn't by any means like a seedling or even a particularly small plant, but it was giving me leaves that were probably like half the size of that, and I think it had 2 leaves when I first got it. In fact, I have got a picture somewhere, so I'll put it on the screen so you can see. But it is now throwing out leaves that are just under 2 meters in length, which is absolutely crazy and obviously such a huge step up in such a short amount of time. So I feel incredibly proud of this plant, incredibly proud. And also it's just, I don't know, it's made me feel really good about myself as a grower because it's, I don't know, I'm just like, I'm obviously doing something right. And when plants respond well to what you're doing, it does just make you feel really good about yourself, doesn't it? So yeah, but the most exciting thing with this one currently is the fact that a few weeks ago it gave me its first inflorescence, which is very exciting. Annoyingly, I didn't have any compatible pollen to pollinate it at the time, so I tried with some Anthurium clarinervium pollen. I'm pretty certain those 2 types of Anthuriums can't be hybridized, but I was like, I've got loads of clarinervium pollen, why not give it a go? However, now that it's moved into the male phase and it is actually giving me pollen itself, I am collecting the pollen daily so that I can hopefully pollinate another plant. And actually, literally about 5 minutes before I set up to film this video, I just noticed that it is actually giving me another inflorescence just there. So that does mean that assuming everything goes to plan, I will be able to pollinate this plant and I will be able to get some berries and grow this plant from seed at some point. I was going to say in the next year. I don't know how long it takes. I've only ever pollinated the clarinervium before, and oh my goodness, that one took like a year and a half before it was ready for harvest. So this might be a long old journey, but we'll see. I don't know, like although I really, really want to pollinate this plant as well, part of me is like, I know how much energy that takes from the plant, and it's giving me such beautiful foliage. Do I want to sacrifice the beautiful foliage? Not that I think it would lose the leaves that it's got, but I do think it would probably slow down the leaves that it's giving me, and maybe the growth wouldn't be as big. So I don't know, I will think on that, but it's very exciting to have the option. And I've said it before, but like texture in houseplants for me is massive, and this one has just got the most beautiful velvety strappy leaves. It's been living over there in my window, which I believe is southeast facing. I know I really should know this by now. But it doesn't get a huge amount of like bright direct sun, but it does get kind of all round bright and direct light. And some people might say that that's too much light for this plant, but personally I would say the proof is in the pudding. Mine seems very happy, and it has sized up hugely in a short amount of time. So I really do put that down, a lot of it down to the light it's been getting. So yeah, in my personal experience, I would say up the light. Obviously, if you have got one growing in lower light conditions, always make sure to acclimate your plants slowly, because otherwise you could cause issues or leaves could burn and stuff like that. But yeah, mine's been growing in very high light, very happily indeed. The other thing that I keep thinking I could do, and again, I'm not sure how brave I'm going to be, but as you can see, it's really kind of growing, like massively growing out of the pots that I've got it in at the moment. It's in fact definitely due for a repot. But this bit around the top here, I'd either like to pot it deeper and air layer it so I can get some of those aerial roots going, kind of like I've done here, but like down this big main stem. Or, and this is scary, but I could chop and propagate the plant. Again, like I'm just so reluctant to do anything that might jeopardize it at the moment because it's growing so beautifully, but that is something that I may do this year. But for the time being, I'm going to focus on potential pollination and just letting it grow as big and beautiful as possible, because it's just, I was going to say rocking my world. It really is. It's just an amazing plant, and one that I have zero regrets at all in getting. I just think it's wonderful. And then down here, this is another one that I have just raved about this year, and it is the Begonia sinbad. And I know I said I would show you the plants like in their positions where I'm keeping them. I'm actually going to bring this one into a different light, because I feel like you can't really tell how beautiful she is unless you see her in this light. There we go, look at that. So yeah, the Begonia sinbad, as I say, I know I've banged on about this one. I find it hard to not talk about this one because I think she is just so beautiful. And this has really been the year for begonias for me, because I've never been a begonia person. I've been very aware of begonias and I've seen them in other people's collections, and I thought they're fine, to be honest. I was going to say I thought they were lovely. I just thought they were fine. I thought they kind of all looked the same. And then I got a cutting of the Begonia sinbad. I think I got this in June, and I just fell in love with the cutting that I had, and I just was like, I need to get more. I need to grow a full plant. And so I ordered, I think then, about 4 or 5 cuttings, and as you can see now, it's absolutely huge. And I'm growing it in this pot, or this kind of vase rather, without drainage. And if you remember, if you watch my other videos, I transferred it into this maybe 3 months ago, and I was like, oh, I hope it's not going to be too overwhelming for the plant. I hope its roots are going to be okay. And since I've put it in there, just look at the roots it's giving me. Like, I'm actually now like, I think I might need to upsize it again, and that's just insane. Like, that is absolutely insane. But the only thing I'm struggling with this one now is that because it is so rooty, it dries out so quickly. Like, I'm watering it probably every other day. But yeah, if I don't water it, it isn't one that does very well. Like, it's not very drought tolerant. So I have lost quite a few leaves here or there. In fact, I can see, I'm going to take it off and show you. I can see one just here. Yeah, do you see that one's just starting to turn a little bit in the corner? Yeah, and that is due to the fact that I didn't water it for a couple of days. And so what I've been doing is I've just been removing some of the flowers. I do at some point think I will play about with pollination with this begonia, but just for the time being, while I kind of strike the right balance, I've been removing the flowers here or there. They do pop up back so quickly, so hence why you can see some, but just so that the plant can kind of conserve a little bit of energy and it's not wasting the water I'm giving it on producing flowers as opposed to foliage. But yeah, it's one that I typically, although there's been a few hiccups here and there, I have found very, very easy. It has really not given me any grief, and I've grown it in lots of different positions around my home. It just seems very adaptable and very forgiving, and it's just so lovely. Like its leaves, the colour of its leaves, that slight kind of pinky hue with the minty green is just amazing. So yeah, it's one that I feel so lucky to have been given the opportunity to grow this year and to have discovered, because it's one that you don't see about that much. So yeah, it was complete fluke that I stumbled across this one. I think I was looking for another plant on Etsy at the time. But yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And this next one here doesn't actually live in this spot. It's one that I will put some clips in of, but it lives through in the bedroom. And there is a reason that I don't take you through to the bedroom much anymore. I have got quite a few plants through there, but it's just like, it's like storage central for us. It's always a bit of a mess. We don't have enough space for all our stuff, so it's easier for me to bring things here and show you them in a way that, although it's kind of like planty cluttered, it's not like piles of laundry. But this one again has been a solid favourite in my collection for as long as I can remember, and it is the Peperomia Hope. And although I have loved this plant for years and years and years, this is the best it has ever looked, and I wish I could take full credit, but I just can't. I actually got the majority of this plant from a lovely friend that I've made over on my Patreon community. Sue, thank you so much for this Peperomia Hope. Yeah, this woman was downsizing her plant collection in preparation for moving, and she was like, I know you love the Peperomia Hope, would you like my one? And so what I've done is I've combined my existing Peperomia Hope with the lovely one that she gave me, and it has just made the most gorgeous, gorgeous full plant. I've said it before, the Peperomia Hope for me is almost kind of like a Hoya. Like it feels more Hoya than it does Peperomia for some reason. I think just because of the robustness and the resilience of its leaves, but they're so penny-like and they're just so pretty and satisfying. And this is a plant that I've grown over the years in multiple different conditions, and I feel like it's one that really, I know I said at the beginning of this video, plants that have really taught me a lot. This is one that I feel like has really made me kind of listen to my plants better, as silly as that might sound, because I was growing the Peperomia Hope very successfully in the old environment that I was living in at my mum's house. When I moved here, everything went downhill and I lost my plant. I got another one, and then I really struggled with the growth getting very small. I struggled with propagating. I struggled with so many things. And this is the first time in a really long time, thanks to Sue helping me refill out the plant as well, but the first time in a really long time that I feel truly so happy with my Peperomia Hope and the way that it's growing. Like even the new growth it's putting out is still a lovely size. And I will absolutely do, if you guys want to see it, a full breakdown video on this plant and the things that I've learnt, because it has been one that, although it's not difficult to grow, in fact, in a lot of ways, it's very, very easy. If you don't give it the right conditions and the right nutrients, and you don't strike the right balance, it can be a little bit of a challenge in some ways. So yeah, it's one that I adore. I love growing so much, and I can't see myself ever getting rid of this one. I just think it's wonderful. I really do. So yeah, it is a firm favourite, here to stay, and one that I really hope to experiment a little bit more with this year. I feel like I've really got my head around propagation for this one now, which took a while. But yeah, many corners have been turned and I just think it's amazing. And then coming into my cabinet, this is one that I really neglected to talk about in the latter half of last year, but it is the Drymonia chiribogana. And again, I got this one about a year ago. I got it in January 2024, and I had never heard of this plant before. It was very, very kindly sent to me by one of you guys. yeah, I'd never heard of it before, I'd never grown it before. And first impression wise, I remember when I took this one out of the box, I remember messaging Emma and I sent her a picture and I was like, I like it, but I don't think it's a plant I would have chosen to grow. I don't know if I'm going to be very good at growing it. It kind of reminded me of the Aphelandra squarosa, which is commonly known as the zebra plant, which I actually feel like I have done much better with this year. But I have previously really struggled with that plant, so I kind of assumed that I would struggle with this one as well. And oh my goodness, it grew like an absolute weed. And for the first kind of 4 months of owning it, I would say it was probably the easiest plant I have ever grown. Like, I know that sounds maybe a little bit dramatic, but like it was the easiest thing in the world. I did basically nothing to it and the plant just grew like a weed and was really, really happy. And then I decided that it would be a good idea to chop and propagate the plant because it had got so tall so quickly. It was kind of leaning over and I was like, I don't really want to stake it. I'd prefer to get it out of sphagnum moss, which ironically is what it's back in again now. But I was like, I want to get it into soil and I want to grow the plant big and full, but like fuller, not just one stem. So that's when all the issues started, and it's funny because I have actually propagated this plant successfully since then. Like, this is, as you can see, a propagation, it's not the big full plant. But everything just started going really, really wrong, and every single section had a different thing going on with it. One section got thrips, one got mealybugs, another couple just didn't respond well. Like, I tried to do a wet stick section and that one just rotted. And all of a sudden I started feeling quite panicky that I was going to lose the whole plant. So I chopped up every single bit that I had and I just put them straight back into sphagnum moss because I was like, that was going well originally. Maybe if I just start the plant as I did initially, then that will be fine. And you know what? That has been the way forward. Like, this plant is now looking the way that it is because I've gone back to my old way of growing, and again it's now back to being really, really easy. But it has been a little bit of a dip in the year to get it to this place. So yeah, the one thing I will say is I do feel a little bit nervous now about transitioning this one out of sphagnum moss and into anything else. I think I'm going to wait for these sections I've got here to really kind of establish themselves a little bit better, and then I might start playing around with different substrates again. But for the time being, I am just keeping it as is and trying to grow a big, full, healthy plant back again. But I just love the foliage of this one. I think it is so unusual. I'll put a picture in actually of what it looks like when it's mature, because this is still quite juvenile growth that you're seeing here. But when it hardens off, it's really kind of dark and almost waxy, whereas at the moment it's quite velvety. But yeah, it's just a plant that I adore, and I'm so excited to grow again this year because it kind of feels like a fresh start going into this year. But yeah, I love it. And then again, this next one is one that I wanted to show you in the spot that I'm growing it in, but I'm not sure. Oh, you can actually see it quite well. Oh dear. I have just noticed, however, that I think the basket I'm growing it in is leaking. This is my variegated Alocasia frydek, or one of the corms, sprouted corms, should I say, from my variegated Alocasia frydek. And I'm growing it in semi-hydro in a basket that's lined, like a plastic lined basket. But yeah, it's definitely leaking, so I need to change that up. But the reason I'm showing you the little plant, one of the little plants, and not the mother plant, which is also, this type of plant in general has just been a firm favourite throughout the year for me. But I really, really struggled to grow this plant from a corm in a way that it gave me a good balance of variegation. And this isn't specific, I don't think, to me as... In fact, I'm going to move because the light is awful. I don't think this is specific to me as a grower, and more the fact that I don't think my mother plant had the best genetics for propagation, because I struggled so much with just like ghost growth in this plant. Like, I was getting an unbelievable amount of corms from it. But every single corm that sprouted was just completely white. And although that looks really, really pretty, There's not a lot that can be done about that because obviously the white doesn't contain any chlorophyll. It will just die off. And one of them, which is this one that I'm showing you here, actually did then start putting out some green, and it's growing into such a lovely, lovely plant. It did at one point actually have 3 leaves, and I've had to chop the other 2 back because it did get thrips, which was very annoying. But yeah, it feels like a real achievement and quite a long time coming because I propped so many of the corms. I propagated them in a few different ways, but the best ways that I found, I mean, like alocasia corm propagation can be a little bit finicky for some people, but the 2 best ways that I found for this type were shallow water and sphagnum moss. I don't think I have like a preferred one. I was very lucky in the sense though with these ones that neither way caused the corms to rot, because there are some alocasia corms, and the one that springs to mind specifically is like the Alocasia jaclyn. Every time I have tried propagating that one in shallow water, always rots. I don't know why, it just does. Maybe it's me, but yeah, that is the way that I found best for this plant. And yeah, I think the balance of variegation that this one has is just stunning. It's so dappled and beautiful. And I really hope it continues in this way because I would love to, I think what my grand plan would probably be is to pot this one with maybe one of the other babies that I've got up with the mother plant and kind of get it a little bit fuller, because although I feel like I've come a long way with my mother plant, it's rare that it ever has more than about 5 leaves. It does still tend to cycle quite a lot, and although 5 is like massively better than it used to be, I would still like it to just fill out a little bit more. So yeah, I think that is my plan for 2025 with this one. But yeah, again, it's been a massive learning curve plant for me. I really do feel like a lot of the plants I'm showing you are ones that have kind of kept me on my toes a little bit this year. And maybe that's why I've loved them so much. I don't know. But yeah, it's just been a wonderful one, and I can't wait to see what it does for me this year. And then another one that's been a bit of a struggle for me this year, and as you can probably see, it is growing in a very, very, very weird way at the moment, is my Monstera dubia. And in fact, I will slide it over so I can show you it a bit better. I actually completely chopped up my Monstera dubia not that long ago because I was struggling with mealybugs on this plant. And I think because for the last, like, I would say 1.5 years solidly, I've been growing this plant in its large form. Like, I've managed to get it to a level where it's giving me really, really kind of insanely big growth. And I feel quite confident with this plant in this state. Like, I felt confident chopping and propagating it. I feel like once it gets going, it does grow very quickly. So the chop wasn't as scary. Don't get me wrong, I was slightly terrified, but it wasn't as scary as it might be for like chopping a plant that I don't feel quite so familiar with, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm currently air layering this section here in this weird bit of cling film, and the reason that I'm just hanging it here in the middle of the room is just because although I pest treated it and I'm still pretty sure that the plant is pest free, I didn't want to risk putting it in amongst any of my other plants just in case there were still mealybugs lurking, because obviously mealybugs getting into plants is a nightmare. So this is my way of isolating when you don't have a lot of space to isolate, basically. And I think it's worked quite well. I haven't found any like mealybug infestations on any surrounding plants. I've obviously had the odd 1 or 2 here or there, but I do just know I am quite prone to them. So long as it doesn't become an infestation, I don't tend to worry that much. But yeah, I just think it is the most amazing Monstera. I love the fenestrations in its leaves. The length that I feel like my plants achieved this year is something that I feel, again, really, really proud of. And I do hope that now I've chopped it, I am able to continue to grow it like this and kind of conserve it a little bit more. I would hope that this is, I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell. I can't see loads of roots yet. But it also obviously hasn't died, and even the new growth point hasn't died back. So I'm hoping that maybe in the next month or so I should start to see some roots, and then I can get it on a moss pole and start growing it again, kind of like as a reset plant. I've also got a ton of sections of it still through in the bedroom that were also mealybugged and I chopped up. So maybe I'll combine them, or maybe, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead, but yeah, it's just a plant that I love. I can't imagine not having in my collection, and I just think it's really, really wonderful. And I was also going to say, there are a couple of plants that I'm going to just give like an honourable mention to. Like, for example, my Monstera deliciosa just here behind me, and things like pothos plants as well, that although I'm not including in my top 10 from the last year, I'm focusing on the ones that I feel like have given me a lot of excitement and kind of kept me on my toes. And although maybe I'm not like over the moon every time I get a new pothos leaf, I still do love those plants and I can't imagine my collection without them. So therefore I would say they're still favourites, if that makes sense. So yeah, honourable mention to those ones. And then in amongst the planty chaos down here, I know all of these plants deserve better spots, but for now we're prioritising light, is my Anthurium luxurians platinum. And this is one that, to be honest, I don't think I've really realised just how much I have loved this plant this year. It's just one that I constantly find myself coming back to and checking on, and anytime it gives me a new leaf, I am over the moon excited. But yeah, when I was going through and I was making this list, I originally started with like 20 plants on the list that I was like, I really love them. Like all of these could be favourites. And yeah, so I just kept coming back to this one and I was like, I feel like I can't not include it because it's just so wonderful. I love everything about it. I love the shiny kind of, doesn't show that well on camera in this light because the light is going again. But yeah, it's kind of got like a silver tinge to its leaves, and then it's got these beautiful red stems. I just think it's gorgeous. And again, it has been such an easy one for me to grow. This is another one that I've got in a no drainage system. I've got a layer of leca on the bottom, and then I've just got a chunky soil mix on top. And as you can see, the roots are incredible, absolutely incredible. And it is also starting, I mean, very early days, but it is starting to give me a new leaf just there, which I'm so excited about. But this one, again, has just been a plant that's been so incredibly adaptable. I've grown it in so many different spots around my home this year. It started under my TV, which at the time it didn't have a grow light there, so it was quite a low light spot. Not ideal for this plant, but again, I was just trying to save space. And now, yeah, it's just down by my window there, and it's just been happy everywhere. And touch wood, I haven't had any grief from this plant at all. So yeah, I'm aware of how big this one can get, and I really, really hope that now I've kind of sussed it a little bit and I feel comfortable growing this plant. And especially now I've kind of optimized its lighting and all that sort of stuff, I really hope that it just continues to size up and I'm ending the year with a really ginormous one. That's the goal for me. I know you should always focus on health over growth. I feel like this plant is healthy. I feel like I'm doing all the right things. But yeah, I just would really love it to size up even more. So stay tuned. And again, over here, oh, not the easiest one to show you, but a firm favourite is my Alocasia jaclyn. And this one, since I have put it under my Sansi grow lights, has completely changed in structure. It is now an incredibly upright plant. I've staked one of the leaves, all of the rest are just standing up like this by themselves. Because previously when I've shown you this plant, it's been much easier. I've kind of been able to like bend the leaves over and show you. And now I think obviously because this plant was just dying for some more light, it is so upright and it's so big. Like, I don't know if you can really tell on camera just how big this one is, but every single leaf it's giving me is just sizing up more and more and more. And like I've said before, it has just been one that's kind of like the apple of my eye in my collection. And I just can't imagine my plant collection without. Like, if I was going to move house, I would take this plant first. I feel like this is one of the first ones I would put in a new space. I find it really weird to imagine having plants without having the Alocasia jaclyn. And yeah, I just love everything from like the texture to the colour of this one's leaves. Like, it's got such a beautiful variety of kind of green shades in there with that dark dramatic veination. And for me, it is just picture perfect. And it is one, to be honest, when I first got it, I didn't, like, I wouldn't say it was necessarily like a struggle plant, but it is one that I did take a little bit of time to get my head around. And since I've got it into semi-hydro, as with so many of my other alocasias, it has just become a walk in the park. So genuinely, if this is one you're struggling with, chunky semi-hydro is the way forward. I will put a clip in of the chunky stuff that I'm using because I don't think I can hold it up. It's very heavy. But yeah, I got this for my birthday, I think probably about 3 years ago now, from some of my friends in the plant community, and it was in a teeny tiny little 8cm pot. It probably came up to about there. And it is just a giant nowadays. It's so lovely. It's one that I have struggled with in terms of pests. It's had, oh my God, it's had thrips, it's had mealybugs, it's had, I think, spider mites as well. And it is just that kind of plant, unfortunately. So I now do give it like regular showers, regular wipe downs, and touch wood, I haven't seen pests on it in a while, but yeah, it's one that is potentially a little bit higher maintenance than some of my others. But for me, I just think it's totally worth it because it's just gorgeous. Look at it, it's just gorgeous. And then coming through amother rather chaotic section of plants, one that I just couldn't not include was the Coleus amboinicus. And this plant, again, I'm going to spin you around so you can see it slightly better lighting wise. But this plant is another one that was very kindly sent to me by one of you guys, one of my lovely friends over on Patreon, Anne-Marie. You sent me some cuttings of this. Oh, how long ago was it now? Probably, I want to say like 5 months, maybe. Yeah, about 5 months, I'd say. And it has just burst into life. It has become one of my favourite plants to not only grow but also cook with, because it's commonly known as Cuban oregano, Mexican mint. It's kind of like a mishmash of lots of herbs, and it smells and tastes beautiful. And actually pruning it back for cooking just really helps to encourage the growth to be much more bushy. So although I'm typically quite bad at cutting my plants, like I just want to let them grow and be a little bit wild, this one has made me a little bit better at being brutal and actually chopping them back. God, I love just handling this plant because it smells amazing. It is just such a fragrant, beautiful one. And I know apparently it's actually, like, it's not one that you see that much here in the UK, or at least I haven't seen in garden centres that much or anything, but apparently it's really quite common. Like, you can get hold of this plant really quite easily. Which doesn't surprise me actually, because it's very, very easy to propagate. I have taken lots of cuttings of it in the time of owning it, and it's propagated beautifully. But yeah, it's one that I would really recommend everybody to have, because not only does it look and feel and smell amazing, but as I say, you can also cook with it, and I find that quite fun. And I've also grown this one for the majority of my time owning it in, again, another no drainage system. So I've got some semi-hydro on the bottom, I've got the mix on top, and obviously this one is a semi-succulent, so I wasn't quite sure how this was going to work. I was like, is that going to be too much for it? Is it going to be susceptible to rot? And honestly, I just watered this plant off site. I'll just look and see what the roots look like, what the soil looks like, and I water it maybe like once every couple of weeks, and it's been perfectly, perfectly happy. And also, if you look at the bottom of the plant there, you can see it's getting really quite woody, and plants typically do that when they reach maturity because they know that they're going to be supporting quite heavy growth, and it's almost their way of developing kind of like, I think it's called corking, but like a trunk kind of barkiness to them, just to kind of strengthen the base so that they can take the weight. So yeah, it's weird actually feeling that bit compared to the top of the plant there, because it feels like two completely different plants. But yeah, at some point, if I've got a kitchen that's beautifully well lit, because this is one that needs quite high light, if I've got a kitchen that has lovely light, I would love to grow this one on the windowsill and just kind of chop it back when I'm cooking as and when I need it. A little herb garden is my dream at some point. But yeah, for the time being, it's again on my window shelf, living its best life. These sections here at the top are going a little bit crazy, so I will probably chop them back later. But yeah, it's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful plant. And again, this is another one that I think in its current position, because it is squashed, might be quite difficult to show you. Or no, maybe we'll get there. Maybe this is all right. But this is an Anthurium that I debated whether or not to put in this video, because this is actually quite a new addition to my collection. I've only had this one for a couple of months, but it is one that I wanted for such a long time, and I was like, you know what, I do just love it, so why would I not include it? I'm aware it beat out some other ones that maybe you're like, oh God, I can't believe you're not including that. But yeah, it's amazing. I just love the weird and wonderful leaves this one has. They are so bizarre. And just, I don't know, it's a plant that makes me really, really happy to look at. And I was a bit nervous when I got this one that it was going to be a bit of a challenge, because there's several types of Anthurium that I've got in my collection. They have kind of got a similar structure and a similar kind of feel to their leaves, like quite almost like thin and flimsy compared to a lot of Anthuriums. I was a bit worried that I was going to be really bad at growing this one, and although, as I say, it is early days, it has already given me this beautiful, beautiful leaf just here. And it kind of looks like it's getting ready to give me another leaf there already, which is crazy considering it is such early days with this plant. But yeah, it's one that, as I say, when I ticked off the wish list, I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad. I'm so glad this plant was actually worth it, because there are occasions where you kind of hype a plant up in your mind, or you see it in other people's collections and you get so excited about it, or at least I do. And then when I actually get the plant, I'm a bit like, oh, okay. And this one is one that, firstly, I don't know many other people that own this plant or grow this plant. And I unboxed it and straight away I was just like, I am in love. So yeah, I'm so excited to see what it's going to do for me this year. I'm currently again growing it on one of my window shelves and it seems really happy. No other special conditions apart from that. So far so good. So far so good. And I really hope to be able to achieve a really gorgeous level of growth with this plant this year, because, as I say, it is just amazing. But yeah, if I'm being really, really nitpicky, and I am for the purpose of this video, those are my favourite top 10 plants from the past year. I've got several others that I could have included, and oh God, as I say, ones that I know I have banged on about and I've idolised at certain points, and I'm like, should I have included that one? But I do feel solid in my choices here. These ones have all just been amazing in different ways, and I'm excited by all of them as well. I'm still so excited by them. So yeah, I will keep you updated as the year goes on. Please comment down below and let me know what some of your favourite plants from the last year have been. I would love to know your top 10. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.